I'm Tony Ruiz of Gold Derby here with Franky Guttman, the Emmy-nominated editor of Barry, him alongside his fellow editor, Ali Greer. They have submitted the season finale, Wow, both yay for the Emmys, and that's the name of the episode. And Franky, I'm just curious, the Emmy nomination experience, you actually have to go through the pages of the nominations to find out if you're how did you learn of it?
It's quite a scroll through that PDF, isn't it? I was actually working and I forgot what day they were supposed to announce them. I thought it was like the day after, and then I was just like I had like 8 texts, which is a lot for me if it's not from my wife about our kids, and they all said congrats, and I was like, what did I do? And I was like, oh, cool. So that was fun. It was a nice surprise.
So this particular episode, finales are always such a tricky thing to pull off, from whether it's an acting or directing or writing, which Bill Hader does in all of those capacities. So working with Ali, what was your guys' kind of approach in working with Bill on this particular episode?
First of all, to not fuck it up, because we wanted it to be great, and I think we all felt a lot of pressure, especially a finale of like a show that people love and they want to see it end in a satisfying way, and we wanted to make sure that we were delivering something that we were happy with and that we could say like, well, if nobody liked it, we love this. And so it was really just about like, and Bill, like you said, writes, directs, acts, does publicity, which it's a long season and it kind of takes a toll. I can't, like, just cutting the show is like, it's so fun, but it's also a lot. And I can't imagine what that's like to have that pressure on you. So I remember, and one of the great things about Bill is that he's very open, and he'll come into the cutting room and sometimes he'll just be like, guys, I'm exhausted, can you guys just like go through the footage today? And there was a time when it was like time to do the finale, and he kind of came in the cutting room and he was just like, can you guys just like go back over it again and make sure that it's everything that you want, before we start working on it? Because I think when you're done shooting, because we know we did some reshoots and stuff, and when you're done with that process, I can't imagine what that's like. So me and Ali literally went through the whole episode like 3 or 4 days, and we looked at like every single take, every line, and making sure we were happy with who we were on, that we were getting the right emotion, that the story was tracking what felt wrong to us so that we could kind of bring it up. And there were a couple things that we reshot, and just really going over with a fine-tooth comb the whole episode. Kind of great thing about Allie, who is unfortunately not here, is like her brain works very differently from mine. So I think we kind of have a great working relationship. We're always like showing each other things, and we can be very blunt with our opinion. Like, I know if I show something to Allie and she's like, it's great, and like I might be stressed about it, and I'll be like, this scene sucks, and I'll show it to her, and she'll be like, it's great. I'll be like, oh, I'm wrong. Or if I show her something and she's just like, I'm like, oh no. And like I just have that trust in her, and I think she has that trust in me too, and we trust each other's taste. That, not that we don't go through every episode with a fine-tooth comb, but we really did like every size of comb on this one, even before we sat down with Bill.
Well, and I'm curious about that, because when you work on a show like this, and it's almost like you're the first kind of creator of what the audience sees. Obviously, it goes through Bill and Alec, and there's obviously changes that are made. But do you go into it kind of anticipating what you think, in this case, Bill would want, or is that too much stress? You just
uh
trust your own instincts?
it's a little bit of both. Obviously, because I started on the first season of the show as an assistant editor and have worked my way up to editor and kind of gotten to really know Bill's style over the years. So I kind of know what Bill likes, um, and what he's gonna want, and trying to kind of cater to that. And sometimes we don't have the same taste, and I'll kind of just like, well, I really like this, and I'll take a swing and I'll do my version that I really like. And ultimately it's his show. So, and it's just really about just taking the ego out of it, and just knowing like, I know like we both knew or know the way that Bill likes things. Like he has developed this very strong voice, which I think is really unique and beautiful. And so it's kind of like, how would I want to say it? It's easy in a way because you get to know him so well, and that's what's been really great about like the creative relationship that we've established. Um so at the same time, developing my own voice, wanted to do my own version, but ultimately knowing like this is Bill's baby and it's gonna be his thing, and you kind of just have to know that and just think, how can I serve his vision the best way? And he's so easy to work with in that way. And it's never, if it's not right, we just fix it. It's like very, very low stakes with digital editing. It's like I messed up, we'll do it again. And sometimes you'll show him a scene and he's like, you nailed it. That's exactly what I thought. And we spend zero time on it. Sometimes you show him a scene and he's like, all right, we'll start from the beginning, and we recut the scene. And that's the job.
Well, and with this particular episode, I think that for me, one of the most interesting things in terms of editing is the movie at the end, which has,
Yeah.
in my opinion, it has its own feel. It has its own,
Yeah.
it feels separate from Barry and yet still of a part. Was that a particularly conscious choice on your guys' part?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I think the idea with the movie was to do everything that we don't do on Barry. So, like on Barry, we always shoot on short lenses. We don't hardly ever use long lenses. We don't have gore, like all of the violence is very realistic. It's like a tiny bullet hole. It's not like, so you'll see like the guys getting their heads blown apart. We don't have score during scenes generally. We did it a little bit more in the fourth season where there's a couple scenes where we had the score during the scene, but usually we don't, especially during a dialogue scene. So it's really like an opportunity to be like, okay, we finished Barry the show. Now we get to break all of those rules. And it was like really fun. I think I almost had too much fun with it because I did like a 18 or 20-minute cut of that movie, which I showed to like some of the writers, and it was like really funny. And then I think when Bill heard that it was like a 20-minute cut of the movie, he's like, dude, no, it needs to be like 5 minutes. And it was really hard. I really just had a blast with it and thought it was fun. It's like,
I'm just as a fan of the
yeah.
show, I'm just in my head, you know, imagining how much footage there was that you could make a 20-minute movie out of
It
that.
was
And
just other scenes. It was others. There's a lot of scenes that we cut. And they kind of shot it Clint Eastwood style. So it was like one or two takes of everything. And so it was not like shortening scenes as much as it was just cutting whole chunks. There's like one scene that I really miss, but other than that, I think like the final result did everything we needed, and it didn't wear out its welcome. Um, because not a viewer, like for me as somebody who's worked on Barry for 4 seasons, like it's very cathartic to do this like long version of this movie. But I think for a viewer, when you're getting, that we had the right amount in there, and Bill was right, which I will always say about everything. Like any showrunner director I worked with, like the correctness percentage of Bill Hader is like so incredibly high. It's just I just learned to not doubt him over time.
well, and so much of what makes that ending so important, I think, is the cuts, is the son's reaction, is John's reaction
Yeah.
to it. And and the length of time that you hold on him, and I think it adds so much tension to the finale.
Yeah, I think, and that was something that Bill reiterated a lot. And he was like, this is John's, like, yeah, we're doing this goofy, like, Portlandia sketch, but like, it's really about John's emotional reaction. And like that last shot of John where he's, just watching his dad die on screen, and I mean, one of my favorite things about the tone of the show is that we can do something so goofy and then it still has that like real weight and emotion to it. And that actor who played the teenage Barry was just fantastic. So good.
I took
um
I'm curious, so much of this finale, and Bill's style, certainly developing over the course of the series, are these oneers, these complex shots. And I'm curious, what is an editor's take on those big long oneers?
they're fun. I like them. I mean, sometimes some of them, might look like oneers and we're stitching pieces together. Like in the finale, there's the piece where he's throwing the big shootout, the quick shootout, and then they're throwing the grenade and the guys are exploding and flying. That looks like a oneer. It's actually like four shots stitched together. And we had an amazing VFX team, led by Laura Hill, who's like the best VFX person I've ever worked with. So sometimes a oneer is not a oneer. I mean, the lazy version of an editor is like, great, I just pick the best one and my job is done for the day. I mean, I really enjoy them. We had that great oneer in season 3 of Sally when she's first on the stage, and it's that ultra wide shot. And you're really just like, when you get a shot like that and you have 3 or 4 amazing takes, it's really just like watching them all and be like, here are the pros and cons of each one. And sometimes it can be really difficult um, to choose because you just, usually you have, at least on this show, there's like a few really good options and you really have to watch it and be like, I don't like this line's not good here. Maybe I can take the audio from this take and put it under this guy, but it's really like difficult in a good way and easy in that, like, okay, I just need to watch 15 takes of this one and pick the best one and drop it in the timeline. That's like, there's 2 minutes of my episode. So like the lazy part of your brain is like, oh, great.
But I'm also thinking specifically of, the editing that people don't really talk about or notice, and that is, how long to linger on a certain shot. I'm thinking specifically in the finale of, the dialogue back and forth between Hank and Fuchs in those tight shots, and
Yeah.
how to know how long. How do you know? And the conversations that you and Ali have, how do you know how long to keep to hold a shot, and how and when to cut back to the other actor?
I mean, for me personally, it's by feel, and it's just, which side of the conversation is more interesting. I mean, obviously, it's not always the person who's talking, but where is the most juice coming from? Who is drawing me in this particular moment? Uh, it's really that. I mean, Ali and I kind of disagreed sometimes too when we were going through that scene because I think for every editor, you have your own taste of what you want to be on and not be on. I wish I could give like a tip or have some kind of hard science to it, but I think it really is just feel, watching the eyes, especially in a tight shot of that, just like trying to connect with the actors and putting yourself in the audience's shoes. And you're always trying to imagine yourself as somebody who doesn't know how the story is going to end and where it's going to go and what you would want to see in that situation. So you're kind of always having to knock yourself back and be like, oh right, but I'm a viewer, I don't know that yet. So you're trying to always, that's why when I'm watching footage, the most important thing I think is kind of maintaining my first reaction to the first time that I've watched the footage, because once you've watched something, you can never get that back. So I always watch all the footage before I cut a scene, and I always take notes on like what made me lean in. And it's not always what ends up in the cut, but probably 70-80% of the time it is, because there's just some magic to the first time you watch something, you get it. Like Stephen Root in that scene, with him and Hank, he did 2 takes, and, like, the first take was great, and then the second take was, like, one of the best things I'd ever seen. And I remember I just texted Bill my timeline, and I was like, "I'm just cutting in this entire take." Like, it's so beautiful, and Steven did such a good job, and I don't think, you know, I think we used that take for 95% of it because he just nailed it. There was like we didn't do another one. Like it was just obvious to everybody on set. It's like that's it. He nailed it, and it's real privilege on a show like this to get to work with actors who can do that. We could have played that whole scene. Not a great idea, but we could have played that whole scene on Steven's face, and I think it would have. And same thing on Anthony's face too. They were both so compelling, and I think it's so special to get to cut a scene like that and watch actors like that who are just at the top of their game. And they shoot on these short lenses too, so you don't realize is like the camera is you know in his face, it's right here. So they're accessing all that
I
emotion.
talked to both
And what
Stephen and Carl about that
yeah,
specifically.
yeah, so I can't imagine what it's like to just act and you have this thing right here. So I guess like the short answer is you just kind of let the actors do their magic, and we're so lucky to have just like the best main cast on the show that it really becomes about making them shine instead of like fixing problems, which a lot of times, as an editor, you're fixing problems. And on this show, it's more just like it's like killing your darlings because there's so much good stuff and you can't put it all in, which is, hopefully I'll get that experience again on another show.
Well, it just to kind of finish up here is to think about the fact that just in this conversation, you've talked about kind of being a storyteller and being a technician and being a judge of acting. And I'm curious, in growing as an editor and growing in your career, is there any element of your job that you weren't aware of that you're like, oh, that's part of my job too?
It's not that I wasn't aware of it, but I think story wise, with what we did on the last couple seasons of Barry, the way, and I think it's a luxury in television. I think in film, you get to do this a lot, but just really being able to, and kudos to HBO for letting us do this, but cut the whole show, look at it, and be like, what's not working? And like, what in the story isn't working for us, and being able to go back and reshoot and think about those things and really hash out in a very direct way. I mean, it's something that we all know. We talk about storytelling and clarity, but really hammering home, okay, this scene, what does this character want? Why are we watching this? Is this the most efficient version of this scene? Like a lot of times, especially in season 3, we'd have 3 scenes and be like, this could just be one scene and it could just be simple. And these 2 characters should just, instead of them each talking about each other somewhere else, let's just put them in the same place and they talk to each other. And just really that focus on like efficiency of story and just wanting it to be the cleanest, purest version and not dilly dally. I think that was like this show was kind of like a military education in that, and really just like honing my skills. And like as we're going into season 4, just like, okay, and also being able to tell Bill like, hey, I don't think this scene doesn't work for me. Like I feel like it'd be more direct if this character just did this, and being able to talk about it and having that language. And also watching Bill, like if a scene's not working, he's goes like this and he gets up, gets a marker, and I just watching him write a new scene on the board and just like learning from him like this education and like writing and just watching his brain move. And he just like fixes the scene on the whiteboard and you're like, oh, genius. So I think really on this show specifically, it was just really like a story efficiency boot camp is the thing that I think I'll take forward with me.
Well, Frankie, congratulations and best of luck at the Emmys. Everybody go to goldderby.com, make your predictions, and stay tuned for interviews with more Emmy contenders in the coming weeks. Franky Guttman, congratulations. A pleasure to talk to you. Thank you.
Thanks so much. You too.